a very warm welcome to everyone who's watching this panel, and of course, a very warm welcome to all our panelists that study STEM. I'm Marlene. I'm a Swiss Army knife at Project Access, studying at King's College London, and I'm happy to have you all on this Zoom call today. So just a brief introduction to what Project Access is about. I'm sure everyone who's joining here has a brief notion of what PA is about. We are a student-led startup that tackles inequalities in higher education. We have mentors and mentees from all over the world in our community that fights together against inequalities. What we are most popular for is the peer-to-peer mentoring scheme. That means that if you're in the process of applying to a top university, you will get a student that has personal experiences in applying to this university or your course, that will help you through your application, the personal statement process, the exams for Oxbridge, for instance, and that will just make you feel more confident and in applying. The Access Academy, where we are having our webinar today, is a platform that helps you to raise your confidence and raise your motivation for the application process, and will help you to find out what and where to study. That is why we're here together, and I'm very excited to learn myself a bit more about your studies today, because I'm a political science student and I don't even have a broad knowledge of STEM myself. So I'm very, very looking forward to hear your talk today. If you have any questions regarding the course or the universities for our panelists, you can either raise your hand via the Zoom function, and we will get back to this in the Q&A, or you can just drop in a question in the Q&A chat. We will have a 30-minute presentation afterwards. We'll answer all your questions, so please be free and frank to ask whatever's on your mind. Yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoy learning something new today. So I will just give the word to our panelists to introduce themselves now. So maybe Pooja, you can start with your introduction.
Yeah. So today, basically the goal of the webinar, we'll be going through. The goal of the webinar is to talk about what STEM is, whether it is the right path for you, what courses are there in STEM, what topics will you study, and what are the job prospects. And we'll also talk about how courses at different universities differ, and we will set the platform up for questions from you.
Perfect. So now you can introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Pooja Nair. I'm from India and I study engineering at the University of Cambridge. I am currently I'm going into my second year. I am also the Cambridge campus officer.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I am from Hong Kong and I currently study aeronautical engineering at Imperial. And I just finished my second year, so I'm going to my third year when we start again in autumn. I work as a Swiss Army knife, like Malin, here at PA.
Hi, I'm Sean, and I'm from Singapore. I study at Imperial College as well. I study physics. I've just completed my third and final year. I'm the lead data scientist at Project Access. Now we'll talk a bit about STEM and why we study it.
So for those of you who don't know, STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. So there are a ton of different fields within STEM. For example, things like biotechnology, biochem, computing, chemical engineering, and a bunch of different other fields in STEM. And reasons you should study STEM include things like to be surrounded and work on innovation and technological advancements, and also gain a lot of soft skills, including things like analytical thinking, which would be really helpful in pursuing various different career paths.
Okay, so I'll be talking about studying general engineering at university and a typical day. So first, what is engineering? Engineering, put simply, is the application of maths and science to solve problems. So engineering is, while it sounds cliche, is also sort of a tool to make the world a better place, if you think about it. Unis offer specialized and general engineering degrees. I will talk about what it is like to study general engineering. So at Cambridge, the first 2 years are general engineering, and the last 2 years, we can specialize and choose a certain field in engineering. Yeah, so why study engineering? The future, as we all know, is now going to be heavily based on tech. And any and every field you go into will have a lot of tech applications, which you can help with if you are an engineer. Second, you learn to solve problems. You gain a lot of mathematical skills, which will help you you'll be able to get jobs in any field right now. And you will also be on the forefront of all future innovations. So this is the course structure at Cambridge, and it's probably the course structure at any general engineering university. So the first and second year, we have integrated engineering course, during which we basically learn all the fields of engineering. We learn mechanical, electronics, structural, fluids, information engineering, computer engineering, bioengineering. And then in our third year, we can choose a specialization. And in our fourth year, we have so it's an integrated master's course for us, and we get both a master's and a bachelor degree by the end of our fourth year. So this is, I just want to sort of give you a look into the typical day in the life of an engineering student. So this, again, this is not what every day will look like. Some days we have less contact hours than this, and some days we might even have more. But 9 to 11 is usually reserved for lectures. And we have 2 lectures each, which are 1 hour each. And then 11 to 1, we have help desk for various assignments. So engineering is a very sort of self-taught course, and you have to put in a lot of effort on your own. And a lot of our assignments, we are told to learn the theory behind it and then apply it. So we have a lot of help desks during which we have professors help us through the assignments if we have any doubts. Then 2 to 5, we have lab sessions. So we either have short or long labs. In our short labs, they're usually 2 hours long, and we do once we learn about one specific part of engineering. And whereas our long labs, we have 3 or 4 hour long labs where we sort of build whole projects. And 6 to 7, we usually have supervisions, which again are sort of unique to Oxford and Cambridge, which are one-on-one sessions with our tutors. Yeah, that.
So unlike Cambridge, most other UK universities will do specialized courses. So you begin studying that specific field of engineering from when you start in first year. I study aeronautical engineering, and although it is specific to aeronautical engineering, there are a lot of aspects of it that overlap with other fields of engineering. For example, mechanical engineering, structural engineering, materials engineering, and a few others. However, the focus is mainly on aerodynamics and mechanics. And this course specifically is very similar to mechanical engineering in terms of the foundations. And just as an additional information, like at Imperial, we do graduate with an accreditation in both mechanical and aeronautical engineering for this course. And there are a few specialized modules for this course, including things like propulsion or mechanics of flight and spacecraft systems. And there are quite a few applications that don't pertain directly to planes, but also are very relevant to aeronautics, such as things like spacecraft, F1, and biological fluids. So picking a university for a STEM course can be quite different from a non-STEM course like a humanities course. There are things to consider, such as your department's facilities. So what kind of labs does your department have? because you will be spending a lot of time doing these labs, as Pooja mentioned earlier. If you're interested in research, especially, it is very important to consider what areas of research your department staff has focused on in the past and currently. And this may have an impact on your final year project or any year ops you may decide to conduct while you're at the university. And again, it is important to consider the quality of that research as well. Another thing that would be important to consider is what kind of modules are offered in that course, because this does differ between different universities for the same course, especially at a higher level towards as you near graduation. And the last thing to consider is your course type and duration. So for example, is it a 3-year bachelor's course or a 4-year integrated master's course? And if you have the option to switch between the two options at some point in the course.
Right, so it's my turn. I'm going to talk about three things. The first, I'll talk a bit about the physics course. Next, I'll give a short overview of my journey through the entire 3-year course. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about the career options available to people in STEM. So what is physics? First, I'd like to say that I think, well, many people have told me that physics is kind of a self-selecting course. What it means is that most people who are interested in joining this course would know, they would know that they're interested because they're passionate about the subject. Unlike many other courses, the course is not famous for their career prospects. So no one's really going in thinking, oh, I'm going to do this course for a great job after that. But I'll briefly talk about what physics is. So the way I see it, physics is math placed with some assumptions and leaving behind the tedious proofs. What I mean by that is that for most physical concepts, we start with a physical phenomena. So for example, it could be the collision of two bodies. We place some assumptions. For example, say we choose to ignore friction. And then we have a beginning equation, say Newton's second law of motion. And finally, we work to solve the equation by applying those assumptions that we had to simplify the problem. So in this case, knowing F equals ma, we could use the assumption of no friction to simplify and have conservation of energy and so on. Yeah, I hope that wasn't too complicated. And the course, like many other courses, have the first 2 years being foundational. So you do lots of modules that are mandatory, and they've set the foundation for any further physics studies. And years 3 and 4 are more customized. You could choose modules that you're interested in and do some projects as well. Next, I'll briefly talk about my experience. So the way I see it, my experience is broken into like 3 different parts, which correspond to 3 different years. And this would represent the first year. So I think most students going to university would feel the same way, being naive and excited. You're looking forward to uni, that things are going to be exciting and, all that kind of stuff. But then in second year, it got a little bit more difficult. The workload increased. Basically, you're doing, for me at least in physics, we're doing all the same modules again, but this time at a higher level. And at this time, I'm starting to realize that most of the modules I'm doing, I might not be as interested in them as I thought I was. And so it became a little bit more difficult to find the motivation to keep studying and doing well. And then finally, we moved on to the third stage, which was this year in my third year. I felt a lot older. I felt a lot more at peace because, well, I knew that this was, well, for 2 reasons. The first was because I knew this was my final year, that the end was in sight. I just had to pull through for 1 more year before graduating. And the second reason was because you have a lot more choice in choosing what modules you are interested in. And when you're studying something you're more interested in, it's easier to find motivation to work through it. So yeah, ultimately I would say my journey was not something I foresaw going to university. And it's definitely been some ups and downs. But yeah, I think many people who've gone through university would tell you the same thing. And finally, I'll talk briefly about the career options available to students in STEM. So this is not an exhaustive list, but this is from what I see the four biggest areas that, four most common areas I see people going towards. So a brief overview on, I'll talk generally about about the four categories first before going into detail. So they're arranged loosely in terms of how technical you're required. So consulting and banking they have less technical requirements compared to the other two. And I'd like to point out also that consulting and banking are probably the two most popular career options among any course in any top university. So this just extends to STEM. And the other two, well, for technology, it's understandably a lot more skewed towards STEM, particularly computing students. And research, well, that's kind of, I won't talk too much about it because I don't have much experience about it, but I'm sure you'll know if you want to spend 6, 10 more years doing a certain subject and if you're really passionate about it. So, okay, I'll go into a bit more detail. For consulting, the way I see it is you can further break it down into two large areas. Non-technical consulting, so that's like management consulting, strategy consulting. Think of firms like McKinsey, PwC, Deloitte, the kind of companies. And you have technical consulting as well. So these are consulting firms that help you do jobs that are more technical in nature. So they could be building software for clients and so on. So the non-technical thing would really only apply to the first category, not the second thing. And well, banking, those are pretty common. There are many resources you can read on to find out what kind of jobs are available in that industry. I won't spend too much time talking about it, but investment banking is probably the most famous example for that industry. And tech, well, tech, you could say it's not really an industry, but a kind of job function, because you have tech companies like Google, Facebook, and so on. But then again, every other big company would have their own tech departments, and you would be doing probably a software engineering role or say a data scientist kind of role. So it's really, yeah, those two large areas in all kinds of industries. I think, yeah, that's an overview of different career options. You can definitely ask more specific questions if there's anything you guys are interested in. But yeah, that's all I had for my part. We can move on to the Q&A right now.
Lovely, thank you very much. So I think there's still some questions wandering around students' minds. So for everyone, feel free to pop in a question in the Q&A. Also, just to let you know already, we will share this panel on YouTube as well, so you can access it always afterwards on our YouTube channel, Project Access. Also, we can share the slides with you if that would be helpful. Now we will move on to the Q&A, and we do already have questions in the chat regarding Leonard. Yes, I am from Berlin, but I think that's very irrelevant. That is answered. Next question: how do you guys manage to pay for university? Like, what kinds of scholarships do you get? Maybe someone of you has experiences with scholarships. It would be lovely to elaborate on that.
So the three of us are international, so I think it is a bit different from someone applying locally, but as an international student, you don't qualify for financial aid in the country, which means you have to look for other resources in terms of financial aid. So I know I'm from Hong Kong, and I know places like Hong Kong offer government scholarships for students to go abroad, and these are offered to students who excel in their high school years. And you have to submit an application, usually consisting of your grades, your some essays stating why you would be worthy of the scholarship. And another option is also corporate scholarships. So I know there are I study aeronautical engineering, and I know for my degree, there are a lot of airlines that offer scholarships for students to study at top universities for this course. So that is something to look into if you don't qualify for local financial aid.
Anyone else? Pooja and Sean, do you have any experiences with scholarships?
Other than the fact that I know UK does not give any scholarships to international students, I don't really have much. Yeah, I think especially when you're applying to the UK, it's a lot more trying to get scholarships from your own country than getting scholarships from the university. Whereas if you apply to the US, you will be able to apply for a lot more scholarships, and they do offer a lot more scholarship schemes for international students.
Yeah, I have the same experience.
Also, just a little insight for scholarships. If you're from Germany, there's several scholarships from the party system, also from the German government. So there are loads of opportunities either in the beginning of your first year or also in the course of your university time to apply for scholarships. So do check this out as well. But if you're a mentor, if you're a mentee for our projectors, you will have all the advice there, and your mentor will also help you on this question. The next question would be, Laura has a question for Pooja. How did you choose engineering and why Cambridge?
Yeah, okay. I actually have a pretty long-winded answer for that. So I was sort of deciding between doing design and STEM. In fact, I applied for a lot of design universities in the US, but I was always sort of inclined towards STEM too, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I think towards the end of the application process, I sort of realized that engineering is what I was more interested in and something I could sort of handle better than design. And I think the main reason I chose engineering personally is that I found it structured, and I like the right and wrong, the sort of knowing what to do. And it was also hands-on. So while I learned a lot of theory, I am also getting to do a lot of hands-on projects. And why Cambridge? Because again, I was not very sure what engineering I wanted to study, and Cambridge offered the option of being able to do multiple engineering subjects for my first 2 years before choosing. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you for answering. The next question is, I'm pretty good at chemistry and physics, but I'm bad at math. I also like history and philosophy. Am I right for a STEM course? What do you think?
Yeah, sorry, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. Well, I'm not sure about chemistry, but for physics, I think your experience in A levels about physics might not be representative of, say, physics at a university level, because the math become a lot more rigorous, and you're really doing a lot of math in your first 2 years. So if math is something you really don't like, you might want to think more about, doing physics, because it really is very mathematically heavy. But as you mentioned something about history and philosophy, I'd like to bring up that there's this interesting course called Physics and Philosophy at Oxford. So that could be something you want to look into.
Yeah, I've also heard that there's a computing and philosophy course at Oxford. And if you're keen on applying to the US, that would be something to consider, because they let you take both a STEM subject and a sort of social science subject.
I think another thing to consider, adding on to what Sean said, is that physics is one of the subjects that is quite math heavy, but if you enjoy like more chemistry side of things, a lot of subjects involving chemistry may be a lot more essay based. So I know, for example, biochem is very essay based rather than math based. I think they only have to take one foundational math class in the first year, and then that's all the math they do. So it really is just a matter of looking at different courses and what modules and how much math is involved in that specific course.
Excellent answer. Thank you. The next question is, I'm taking high school exams in my native language, and despite speaking English quite fluently, I'm kind of worrying about it. How hard is the first semester in a foreign language? So maybe you can elaborate on your experiences of moving to the UK and having studies in a foreign language.
I studied in English, so I don't really have anything to say to that.
Did anyone of you?
English is my first language.
Well, I can just add something to it because German is my first language, and I personally think there's nothing to worry about moving to the UK or US and beginning your studies, because it might be hard for the first week, but with every day you will get way more confident, and in the end you are receiving the information in the language and you will adapt super quick. And all my friends in London share the same experiences of not worrying about language anymore. So don't be afraid of studying in a foreign language. It's sometimes even more exciting and a new chance to begin your studies.
If I may add very slightly to that, universities are aware of this problem as well, like, because that is a thing that they're thinking of. And if you come from a country where English is not the main language, which was the case for me as well, since I'm from India, you are supposed to give a test, or your high school grades are checked, etc. And as you said, you still are a fluent English speaker, and presumably these tests aren't very difficult. And if you do pass these tests, like, then they do think you are good enough to study at the university. So I would say definitely it is not as difficult as it may seem, and it is going to be slightly difficult at the start, maybe. But that definitely should not mean that, you shouldn't apply to some of the top universities in the world.
Absolutely. And you can always prepare in the summer and read English books, read podcasts. I did the same, and I had an excellent start in London. So don't be afraid.
And I also think, that there are some universities that offer English classes and stuff if you're not fluent in English. So that's also probably something you want to look into while choosing your university.
Another thing to add is that I think it can be a bit trickier for STEM because there are a lot of technical terms that you might not know in English. And that might be a really difficult barrier to overcome at the start. But I think once you get over the first few weeks, you'll really learn to hear these words more and more in lectures, and just really get used to hearing these terms in English. And honestly, you'll be fine after the first couple of weeks.
Excellent. The next question is it possible to choose two majors that aren't really the same, like math and social sciences or politics?
I think we already sort of covered that with the other answer, unless anyone else has something to say.
Shall I go first? So yeah, well, I don't really know of anyone who, there are only very rare cases of doing two majors in STEM that I know of. So for example, that would be the physics and philosophy course that we were talking about, or in Imperial there's this joint math and computing course, but those are relatively rare and they're both like STEM subjects. But there is an option in Imperial that I'm aware of people doing. So they do a major in whatever course they're doing, and they have like a minor in business at Imperial Business School.
Oh, and also, sorry, yeah. No, go ahead.
Just to add on, like what Sean said was, at Imperial, you can do a year at the business school. So for example, you do 3 years of biology, and then your 4th year will be a year of business. So you don't do any biology at all, just business, and you graduate with your degree being called biology with business. And that could be interesting. And I'm not sure what other universities offer in terms of similar courses, but if that's what you are interested in, that might be something to look into.
And also there's this YouTuber who does, I think, computing and philosophy. So at Oxford, I cannot recall his name at the moment, but yeah, if you can find his YouTube videos, they'll probably explain a bit of how he sort of juggles the two.
very little on that. I have a friend in Warwick who does discrete math, and essentially discrete math means you do very few core math modules, and then everything else can be whatever you want. So he has a ton of philosophy and computer science modules. So I think like within our common experience, we've listed like 10 different courses, and one of them might be for you, one of them also might not be for you, but there is definitely something out there for you. So the most important thing here is doing the research and finding if there is something that you truly find interesting. And I think second of all, like registering as a PA mentee here would be extremely useful, as you would have one person who is just coordinating with you and like looking for that perfect course. Because definitely if you're not applying to the US, where I think this would be slightly easier, if you're applying to the UK, there can still be a really good option for you. So yeah.
Awesome. The next question is probably also for you, Pooja. Is there a big difference between engineering at Cambridge and Oxford? I don't know if you can give it a go.
From what I know is that Oxford has, I think, a Bachelor in Science of Engineering, or at least it's or not Bachelor of Science, sorry, it's called Engineering Sciences, not Engineering. So I don't think, I'm not sure if they have the same 2-year sort of a general engineering and then a specialized engineering course. I think it's more specific from the beginning itself, but I am not really sure. But you will definitely have a lot more information if you go to the Cambridge and Oxford websites and just sort of look through their course structure, because they have it all on there.
Also, I can just let you know that we from the Access Academy are planning a webinar on the Oxford and Cambridge comparison. So please have a look at our Access Academy webpage to keep updated, and then maybe have a look at this webinar as well, if it's helpful for you. Okay, so I will just unmute Salsabel. Excuse me if I pronounce your name wrong, because you have a question for Pooja as well. 1 second. Great, you should be unmuted now, so maybe you can give it a go. Salsabel? Okay, I don't know if she's still attending. Anyway, let's get on with the next question. And Salsabel, if you want to ask your question out loudly, just give it a go. Great. What's the best way to prepare for the admissions test at Cambridge? Another question for you, Pooja.
Yeah, so at Cambridge, you have if you're applying for engineering, you'll have one pre-interview test, which is called the ENGAA. And I think they have a few online resources. So they have mock tests that are previous tests for the previous year. So you should definitely check that out. If you just search for ENGA Cambridge, ENGA Cambridge online, you will be able to access those. And I think there's also a textbook online that sort of walks you through the topics of the course. And you should also, again, just search for ENGA textbook and you will get the resources. And yeah, basically that, and just sort of do a lot of those practice tests and time yourself while doing it, because it is a very time pressure test.
And here again, if you're considering applying to Oxford, definitely give it a go and apply to become a mentee of PA, because you will get loads of help in your application process, also regarding the test for Cambridge and Oxford. Okay, great. Next question is from Max. Does anyone know anything about the natural science course at Cambridge or a similar one at other universities? Seems interesting to me and broad if you're not entirely sure which of the sciences you want to specialize in yet. I don't know if any of you heard about the natural science course at Cambridge.
I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that you go in and you can study, you can take modules in physics, chemistry, biology, math, and computing. And you can either choose to be like a bio-nat ski, which is you're doing just mainly biology, or you can choose to do modules from chemistry, physics, and biology in your first year. And then I think you have to specialize later on, but again, I'm not very sure.
Okay. Thank you anyway for flagging this. Suman asks, UCL and many other needs an A star in mathematics for engineering program, but I've got an A in it, so should I apply or not? I think that's a very specific question. I don't know if you ever heard about some of your peers that had lower marks but still got in.
I think a lot of top universities do allow for appeals, but that is really dependent on the individual and again, like how close you are to getting an A star. So how close you are to the grade boundary. So for example, if you missed it by 1 or 2 marks, usually they are quite flexible, but that depends on the particular year and the university. So I can't really give a definite answer.
Yeah, and I think some top universities don't usually specify if their grades are just A star, AA. They don't specify which subject you need the A star in. So if you have like an A star in physics or chem, then it might be worth applying to.
Okay, thank you for flagging this. Sean, there's a question for you. Which universities you think are best for studying physics?
I think with the exception of Cambridge, most other schools have a pretty similar physics syllabus. They follow this framework set up by the Institute of Physics, and there is a set number of core modules that have to be done. Though hearing from people from other schools, it seems like there is kind of you have Oxbridge and Imperial apparently having a lot heavier workload than the other schools. So depending on what you're seeking for in a university experience, that might be something you want to consider.
Thank you, Sean. The next question is from Salsabil, but I think I don't know really where the question is. I'm good in math and physics. I also like Islamic study and history. Maybe you can think again about your statement and pop in a question.
I think he sent it again just below. He's asking which.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Thank you. I'm good in math and physics. I also like Islamic studies and history. Please suggest which is better for me, aeronautical engineering or chemical engineering. That's, again, a very specific question that is hard to answer.
I think both of them are quite math and physics heavy. So it really is a matter of what you're interested in, because I think if you're good at math and physics, you would be equally suitable for either of them.
Also, I think you should never forget that even if you decide for a course, you'll always have the freedom also in the future to kind of go into another direction. I myself, for instance, am doing PPE, but in the long run, I also want to connect it to medicine and global health. So you always have the freedom to focus on one thing, but study another, and then kind of, mingle it together.
And I guess depends on how much you like chemistry. Like if you don't like it, then I guess aeronautical is probably the best choice. Whereas if you love it, then chemical engineering.
Okay, thank you.
Can I interrupt you for a little bit? So I noticed you said good for the first part, and then the second part is that you like the other 2 areas. So I'd like to so what I took away from like that, my story about my journey, was that I chose physics because I thought I was good at it. And then in the second year, I realized I did not like it as much as I thought I did. So I'd like to put it out there that just because you're good at something doesn't mean you might want to do it. You do have to think quite hard about whether you like it in the future as well.
Thank you for your insight, John. Leonard is asking, is it also necessary to do the ENGAA for a master's degree? I already finished my bachelor's degree in Germany. Is any one of you confident with answering this question?
I know that the master's application to Cambridge is quite different to the undergrad, so I really think you'd get more information again from just looking at the website.
I agree. So I think best would be to have another look at the website.
I think it's worth mentioning that Project Access, I don't think we talk about it enough on Access Academy, but we do have a master's program as well. So you should you can still register as a mentee for the master's program, and hopefully we do have someone at Cambridge who is studying this very course. So I would definitely seriously consider doing that, and hopefully we can connect you with someone who's much more similarly in your conditions. So yeah.
The next question is, my dream was always to study at Cambridge. I love mathematics and physics, but I have an inconvenience. My mother tongue is Spanish and I speak English only a little. My disadvantage is that my school there is no good in teaching, and because I do not have an economy good, what should I do to improve my fluency?
I think a really good way to get familiar with like technical engineering terms, for example, would be to read books relevant to the subject you want to study. And that would really allow you to understand things that you would be taught in lectures better in English. And again, there are going to be people from your country speaking your language. So if there's anything that you are unsure of, like in lectures or with any course materials, like it is okay, and it's really great that you will get to ask people who also speak your language.
Yeah, and I think you should probably sort of listen to a lot of English videos because I think listening will help a lot. And then try to sort of speak in English as much as you can with whoever you can, because the only way to really learn a language is to speak and listen to it.
I agree. And again, if you're a bit uncertain about applying and writing a personal statement, etc., please apply to the mentoring scheme of Project Access, because they can be a big help in helping you also with your language skills and giving you a reading list to improve your English. That's really a great chance for you as well. Another very specific question: to study pure mathematics, is Cambridge or Oxford better? I can just insert that it's always hard to compare universities, because you will always have a different experience, and it's not only based on what university you study at, but also what you make out of this university. And yeah, anyway, maybe someone else can answer whether Cambridge or Oxford is more convenient for pure mathematics.
I think both of the universities are really good, and it's not a question of which one is better, but which course suits you better. So again, I know we've been saying this a lot, but go to their websites, look at the course, research what you learn, find out the structure of the course, see which one you prefer, which one works better for you. Because at the end of the day, no one's going to say, oh, if you went to Oxford for maths, we'll pick you over someone who did maths at Cambridge, because they're both equally good universities. So yeah, just learn more about the structure of the course.
Thank you, Pooja. Another question for you, Natasha. Please tell us subject information about aeronautical engineering. So maybe you can just give another insight on your aeronautical engineering course.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what information you want to hear, but it is pretty similar, as I mentioned earlier, to mechanical engineering in terms of the foundation that you build up in the first 2 years. I'd say a big focus of the course is fluids, specifically aerodynamics, but you also do have quite a big focus on other things that would be really important to, for example, aircraft, like things like structural dynamics, mechanics, materials, which is really important for making like light aircraft. We have, it's obviously very math heavy, but we also have modules that are like computing, numerical methods. So there's quite a big range of things, and you can specialize in a specific area towards your third and fourth year. But if you have any other questions, then feel free to ask another question. Hopefully that answered your question.
Thank you, Natasha. Also, which universities do you think are best for aeronautical engineering for scholarship programs?
So as we mentioned earlier, for UK universities at least, it's not, scholarship programs typically aren't attached to a specific university. And so if you're international, you want to look at government or corporate company scholarships. If you're a UK local, then you will qualify for financial aid. So it is, I think, dependent on your country and what they offer for students going abroad.
Excellent, thank you. Another question is, how do German Abitur grades compare to English grade requirements? I know the conversion tables, but what should you aim for if you'd want to try and apply for natural science at Cambridge? Maybe I can just give a little insight of applying from Germany to the UK. For me, it was basically a conversion from the German Abitur final grade, which is on like a 1.0, 1.1, 1.2 scale, and the universities themselves provide to kind of convert these grading systems. So you can just simply look it up on the, you should be able to look it up on the Cambridge University webpage, which final grade you require. If it's like a 1.3 or 1.4, you are normally able to find that on the website. But here again, if you want more help on your application, Project Access is a great opportunity to have someone that guides you through all these informations and have a clearer vision of how to apply. The next question for STEM fields, what are good things to mention in your personal statement? How do you make a good competitive personal statement for STEM courses? Maybe you can just elaborate on what you included yourself in your personal statements. Natasha, do you want to start?
Yeah, of course. So I think for STEM courses, it is good to demonstrate interest in the course, like any other course, honestly, but it is good to demonstrate interest and show that, you know, I've done this specific maybe project, or I've read this specific book, or maybe any like societies you've joined in school that might be relevant to your course. I think anything that shows that you have put in some extra work to learn about that specific field would be really helpful for your application.
Yeah, so I think with like engineering, along with reading books like you would for any other subject, it would also be nice to talk about any sort of, like Natasha mentioned projects that you've done that sort of help show that you are able to apply theory to in a practical aspect, and how you're sort of taking the theory that you've learned and you're applying it to various facets in your life. I think just showing that sort of shows your interest in, I think, engineering specifically.
For science, I think, sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
So for science, I think having prior research experience is really valuable. It kind of shows that you've dipped your toes into some research and you're quite sure you're interested in it. And aside from demonstrating interest, I think another important thing to show is to demonstrate excellence in it. So saying things that you do, you should try to show how, you know, you've achieved good results from it, and you're like good at, you're not just trying, but you're doing well in it as well.
We had another question via email. That is, are there any opportunities to work for startups and or research labs when you are in university?
Yeah, of course. There are, oh, you can go ahead.
Sure. So I'm in the UK. I think most universities have a Europe program. So you can spend a summer attached to a professor or a department doing a research project. Yeah, for that research. Though I think, yeah, you could probably find internships in other firms that do research as well. So that might be a little bit more difficult to get than a research stint in your own university. And regarding startups, well, so I think, yeah, there's kind of two ways you can go about it. One is you can start your own startup while you're in uni. So nowadays, many universities have like incubator programs or efforts to encourage entrepreneurship. So that's not too difficult. Personally, I did co-found a startup about 1.5 years ago. And a second way, if you're trying to go into a more established startup, is yes, you can apply to work at startups during your summer as an intern. And if you're from a top university and you have a competitive application, I think you can get it and it'll be good experience as well.
How about you, Pooja? Do you have any experience?
I just completely agree.
Like Cambridge, you can't work during the term, but during your summers and your breaks, you can intern and have research opportunities. So like Sean mentioned, you can usually sort of work with a professor and they regularly update the research opportunities at Cambridge. And along with that, you have a lot of career fairs. So companies come to campus, which includes startups and a lot of big companies. They come to campus. You can again learn a lot from these career fairs. You can sign up to their emails and you can apply for internships. And you'll also have a sort of career department helping you with the process. So you'll have someone you can show your resume to. You'll get emails regarding which companies have openings, etc.
I think another thing to mention in terms of research and UROPs is that UROPs aren't necessarily limited to your own university. So for example, I know someone who studies at Imperial, but contacted a professor at UCL for a research opportunity. So it is possible to get research opportunities at other universities, but it does take a bit of like proactiveness on your part.
Excellent answers. Another question from email was, how would you go about getting your own ideas developed? Did you ever yourself had an idea you wanted to work on or you wanted to start a research project on, regardless of your current course? Maybe you can share an insight for this question.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
I'll talk about it in a perspective of a startup, not in a research area. So like, let's say you have an idea, a business idea you want to develop. For me, how I got into co-founding a startup was when I had a friend from another university who approached me to do it and I happily joined. That's how I do it. But say if you have an idea that you would like to develop in university, there is usually an office specifically to support students with their startup ideas. So they help take you through the various phases of developing your idea, from developing a business plan, having a meeting other people that might potentially join your team, to all the way to starting building a product, getting funding. So yeah, there is most top university there's an office for that. You can probably apply for it. They'll guide you through it, and I think some schools have incubator programs as well. So there is quite a lot of support for that, and if you're interested in that, it's something you should like attend proactively, and you definitely find a lot of help there.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Sean said. So like we have a society called Hackbridge that helps students with ideas sort of evolve in startups. So when you're applying to university, definitely do check their societies and other resources they have to help and support startups if that's something that you're really interested in.
I think another aspect is also in terms of for STEM developing, I think STEM like research maybe related ideas. So for that, a good way to go about it would be to email professors that you think your idea relates to their research or their interests, and see if there's any way you could get involved in what they're working on.
Excellent, thank you. Another question is, what are your personal motivations for the future regarding either higher education or working in the field of STEM? So maybe you can just elaborate on your future plans after finishing your bachelor's degree in the STEM domain. Do you want to start, Pooja?
Yeah, sure. So right now I'm doing an internship in robotics, which I'm finding really interesting. But in terms of what exactly I want to do after I graduate, I am not really sure. So I'm still deciding on whether I want to complete my master's course from Cambridge or try to apply for a master's at a university in the US. But again, I think I'll sort of get a better idea once I'm done with my second year.
How about you, Natasha?
So in the last 2 years of this course, I've taken an interest in computational methods of like solving aeronautics related problems. And so that might be a field I would be interested in terms of both research and like corporate opportunities. So I've just been looking at more tech related jobs. So for example, this summer I'm interning at a fintech company. Yeah.
Interesting. And you, Sean?
Yeah, so, well, I spent the past 4 or 5 years interning at quite a number of different places. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I did internships at startups, huge organizations like a bank. I did some finance, some tech, lots of many different roles. And well, after graduating, about now, I'll be joining like a consulting firm in about 2 months. So yeah, I mean, one advice I'd like to give is that, try to experience as wide of a range of jobs as you can, like of career tracks. So unless you really sure what you know, I think having that broad perspective would help in choosing where you like to go in the future.
Excellent. I wish you good luck with the new consulting firm.
Thank you.
Another question is, I'm in IB. Do you know any form IB? And now STEM students, do you think IB students can have a competitive application compared to other high school diplomas like A-level in the UK?
Yeah, I have a, sorry.
Okay, I actually did the IB, and I think in terms of uni requirements to get in, they're pretty much on par with A-levels. So you're not really at any disadvantage if you do the IB. I think one thing to note is that if your course in uni is kind of like multidisciplinary, so for example, it includes like math, physics, bio, and chemistry, in the IB you are limited by like how many sciences you can take, for example. So you don't have as much knowledge in that many fields as someone who did A-levels all in sciences, for example. But I think, yeah, in terms of application, you're perfectly fine.
Yeah, I have a friend who did IB and is now doing engineering at Cambridge. And yeah, exactly. So your grade requirements, I think they give you grade requirements in the IB scale to yeah. And
so to most UK universities, because they do offer IB in UK schools as well, most UK universities will have their IB requirements posted on their website. So for Imperial, offer, I think it was a 41, and you had to get a 7 in higher level math and physics. So I think the thing with IB is they do specify which like higher levels you need to take. You can't just take it at standard level because that isn't in depth enough to study that course at university. So it is important to take note of whether the subjects you're currently taking match the requirements of that course.
Great answer. Thank you, Natasha. I think now we covered all the proposed questions. Thank you very much in the first place to all our amazing panelists on sharing your personal insights and taking the time to raise motivation and hopefully confidence in our interested students. You will be able, like I said before, to access this webinar on our YouTube channel, and if you're still uncertain in the future, maybe watching it another time will help you. Otherwise, we would love to welcome you again in any other Access Academy webinars. So keep updated on the webinars on our Access Academy channel. Yeah, also, if you have any questions regarding the Access Academy, please send me a message via marlene.bornemann@projectaccess.org. Also, if you have new ideas for future panels, I'm very happy and open to hear about this. Also, if you're considering applying to the UK or the US and you feel a bit uncertain and treated unfairly in this entire process, do try to apply to the mentoring scheme of Project Access. It can be an excellent opportunity to nail the application. 70% of our applicants do get accepted at one of their dream universities. So yeah, do and take this chance. I myself am very jealous that I didn't know about PA when I applied. So yeah, don't do the same mistake. Also, it would be amazing if you could help us with filling out a feedback form that I will send to you to make the future webinars even more efficient and even more perfect for future students and panelists. In the end, I wish all our panelists good luck with their future in the STEM domain, and of course, all our viewers good luck on their academic path. Yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I wish you all a lovely afternoon or morning, wherever you're streaming from. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Hmm.